morning, and afternoon, and everything in between. Sorry, Warwick, have we got the little square? Oh, when I'm ready, okay. And then there's a spot where we'll need to delete it. How many cards? You don't. Just trying to do 10,000 steps a day. And that works out 20 cards. Well, no, I was trying to do 4. I think so. For those of you online, welcome. We'll just be a minute or two and we'll get started. Looks it, doesn't it? Maybe what I should say to people is next one is not online. See what happens. Very good point, yeah. I think that is right. Jody might be coming with later though. You've had the tickets today, hey?
They're sitting in the last of the song seat so that no one sits behind us. Right.
Practice. There's people who need glasses.
Do I need glasses?
Yeah.
I do, to read.
Yeah, I imagine people in the 40s. Alrighty, folks. Well, we might get started. My tea is there, yes, thank you. My wife made me a cup of tea. How about I pray for us and we'll kick off. Father God, we thank you for your love for us and we thank you for your word. And we do pray now as we look at the history once more. We ask that you'd bless this information to us and help us to understand the journey that it took to come to our own hands in our own language now. Amen. Alrighty. Well, welcome back. It's been a fortnight since the last time. Who remembers where we ended a fortnight ago? The goose. Okay, the goose has been cooked. Yes, Jan Hus has been killed. He was put to the stake, burnt at the stake. Singing, that's right, he was singing, right? And so if you remember, we had these two guys at either side, essentially, of the Holy Roman Empire, or of the extent of where the Pope can get to. One in England for you guys, this side, and that was Wycliffe, and he started to question things, and he's done his translation from the Vulgate just straight into Middle English. And remember, he was censored and silenced and everything else. But then the underground evangelists started. And then on the other side of Europe, we then have that information gets to Prague University, and Jan Hus at the Bethlehem Chapel starts to preach in Czech, does the Mass in Czech. He's got an issue with these same things that we've been seeing develop over 1,500 years now, indulgences, corruption, the wealth of the church as well, and he's got issues with this. Now, I did find a movie that is about Jan the One-Eyed. Remember we spoke about that was 4 weeks ago, and he led the rebellion and went under the banner of Hus, the Hussite rebellion. It's actually on Netflix. Sorry? No, it's not. There's a lot of blood, there's a lot of gore, right? Because it does show battles and everything else. So parental advice, whatever they say to that. Discretion advised, yes. It is a bit disjointed. It stars Michael Caine. And it's called Medieval. Okay, so it's called Medieval. It's on Netflix. And it is actually the story of One-Eyed Jan, or Jan the One-Eyed, Jan Ziska. Where would I rate it? I'd say it's probably only going to be like 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, or whatever that thing is. But at the same time, I don't think it's a bad thing to go, oh yeah, okay, this is sort of what things are looking like in that area. This is how things are going, yeah. But I probably wouldn't watch it with your kids first, see if you're happy with it, yeah, etc. Okay. All right, so it is working now. Okay, so for those online, if you've got a question, feel free to send that through, and we can attempt to deal with that as we go. There is a 30-second delay we've worked out between when I say something here live and when you guys watch it online. So just be aware of that. A 39 on Rotten Tomatoes. Well, there you go. See, but I was giving it the benefit of the doubt because it's applicable to what we're looking at. So it got bonus points. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so here's our timeline once more. The left-hand side of the timeline, you now should be pretty like, yeah, I'm good with that. I understand that. I've sort of half locked that away. I've got a bit of an idea. We're now going to focus in on this point in history. So if you look at just to the left of the circle, you can see Jan Hus and John Wycliffe are there. And so we now enter this next period of time. And if you can see, we actually encapsulate the actual, what is called the Reformation, is now encapsulated in our circle. Now, this is going to take us 3 to 4 lectures to go through, okay? Like, it's going to take some time, which is fine. I think that's a good thing. But we're going to now slow down our speed because there's so much more now just piling in on top of one another, okay? So what we're going to do now, we're going to be hitting some timelines for you inside that timeline. So I'm going to give you heaps of things to try and put it into a bit of a logical stages of what's going on here. So remember, 1382, Wycliffe lit the match. This is where we finished a fortnight ago. And 1415, Jan Hus stoked the coals. While he was being burnt, he's actually stoking the coals of what will be the Reformation. In between these two dates, almost exactly in the middle, we're not actually certain on the date. It's plus minus a couple of years. But we have the birth of a guy called Johann Gutenberg. So he's born 1400. Now, this guy is pivotal to the Reformation. He's not pivotal because of a theological position. He's not pivotal because of any of that. He's pivotal because he's an entrepreneur. So here he is here, Gutenberg, and I mentioned him at the end of the last lecture a fortnight ago. So Gutenberg, this is his actual name. So Johannes Glensfleisch Zerleiden zum Gutenberg. And I thought it was quite interesting what his name means. So that's John. The next one, goose meat. Didn't we just cook a goose? Okay, goose meat, loaded or to load, for the good mountain. I have no idea how this is of any relevance, except for the fact that he's goose meat, and we just cooked a goose, and I just like the parallel there that, there's this continuation of goose meat. So 1400, he is born. And in 1439, we don't know too much about his childhood. He doesn't really, there's no documents anywhere that are any value. But in 1439, he shows up in the city of Aachen. So you might remember, Aachen was, does anyone remember what Aachen was? It was a very, very important city, and it was a very important city 600 years ago from Gutenberg. Charlemagne, yes, okay, it was the capital for Charlemagne. This is where he built his palace, this is where he built his cathedral, and this is where he built, remember, the school, and he started like the traveling council and the Missi Dominici, the traveling judges and all that sort of stuff, was in Aachen. Now, how bad has the corruption of the church got? How bad is this notion that relics are of value and, going and touching things and seeing things, going on pilgrimages and, doing all these things, earning points to get out of purgatory? How bad has it become? This is how bad it's become. Gutenberg, he's an entrepreneur, remember, where you can make $1, he's going to make $1. He is selling mirrors, and these mirrors are special because these mirrors, I don't know, they're signed by a bishop or something, but these mirrors capture the light coming off the cloak, like the relics in the cathedral in Aachen. So you take the mirror when you go to your pilgrimage to Aachen to go to the cathedral and see, like the robe of Mary and the whatever the other ones were. What were they, Sarah? What did they have there? They had 4 things. The swaddling cloth and whatever the handkerchief that held the head of John the Baptist, right? These things. So as you go and see those, you actually put the mirror to it, and the mirror catches the holy light, and then you can take it with you, right? And so then we'll bless your house. And that is entrepreneur. Like 1,000,000 points to the guy for this sale. And so he is selling the mirrors in Aachen in 1439. Okay, so this is how bad it's become. Now, I found out the other day that one of the things in Aachen that they had, one of the relics that they had, are you ready for this, was a vial, and inside the vial was 3 drops of the breast milk of Mary. 3 drops of breast milk of Mary. Right. Okay. Sorry? And it hadn't dried out, and, the Blessed Mary. Anyway, but only 3 drops, right? Only 3 drops. Okay. So he turns up. Yeah, so you got the idea. This guy's an inventor. He's entrepreneurial. He's going to make $1 where there's $1 to be made. And in 1444, he then shows up in the town records of Strasbourg, which is to the south of Aachen. It's on the border, basically, of Belgium, near Luxembourg. It's Strasbourg is sort of there. And he shows up at a fair, not a fair, like a quite an important event, showcasing stuff from the town, and his banner, his thing that he's showcasing is called Enterprise and Art. Has a German name, obviously, but translated is Enterprise and Art. And they're not sure what it was, but they do think that it was movable type printing. He was showcasing his prototype of movable type printing. Now, what does that mean? Here's what it basically means. That, remember, woodblock carving was you got a block of wood, you etched it backwards, and so for every page you have a great big block, and right. So what this thing was, there was a tray, and you had little molds, and that little mold you would pour basically pewter into, and it would set really, really quickly. You'd crack the mold open, and now you've got this little square, and it would go into the into the line, like slide in and locked in place. And you could just build words, and you've got thousands of these, big, and you just build your words. You can write your whole thing, and then, so it's movable type. You can change it around. Yeah. Okay, there you go. So those online, Pete has just said this has lasted like up until only his father was still doing movable type in his lifetime. So, and his dad's still alive now. So we're only talking to, it only stopped with the digital age, really, didn't it? Mm. Yeah, okay. So we're like this is huge, right? So if you could put this, if you could sort of say, how big is this? This is like the internet arriving, right? This is sort of how big this is. And so there's this showcase, 1444. And then in 1448, he shows up again in Mainz this time. Now, if you remember Mainz, Mainz is one of those cities on the limes, the frontier, what was the frontier way back with Julius Caesar and those after that, right? Right on the Rhine, where they'd got to. We had the barbarians on one side, and we had the civilized on the other side. He shows up in Mainz, and that's in a bank. He's getting a big loan. Well, it's not really a bank, it's from a guy, but it's being registered through a legal firm, banking type thing. But he's borrowing a stack of cash to do something big. What's he doing? Right? What is he doing? What would you think he's doing if he showcased something 4 years earlier, his prototype, 4 years later he's perfected whatever it is, and now he's going into construction. And so he's going to do something in Mainz. And this is what they think he did. Okay, the movable type printing press. It is, what he actually did is he took a press, and I think it was a press for like wool or something like that, and changed it. So the corkscrew, there's actually a corkscrew in it, and so you can crank down hard to get a good print on it. And so he's put obviously the printing, moving stuff, all the sheets in, sheets out type thing to one side, but that big frame actually comes out of already developed for pressing things down. And it's they're phenomenal machines. Yeah, you wouldn't want to move it. You wouldn't want to be moving. This is not portable. This is, you build this in its spot. Oh, you can see the big corkscrew to the right there, okay? So that would actually be on top of the main H frame to bring down that, to give pressure to the press, okay? So this is what he's adjusting, and then there'd be a whole big tray out to the side with all the little letters and all that sort of stuff. For those going on the tour, we actually get to see a replica of the original in Mainz on day one. We get off the plane, and we're going to the we're going to the Gutenberg Museum, and we're actually seeing the printing press. Yeah, so seeing the very thing that, we're seeing the internet version 1. No, it's not that one. Oh, it could be that one. Who knows? We'll know when we get there, right? Emblazon that in your memory, and then see if it's the same one when you get there. Hello, and welcome. Okay, so now, while this is happening, you've got to go up one. 1446, this other figure turns up in society. And I love the name of this figure. It's an anonymous person, and they are known as the master of the playing cards. I love the title, the master of the playing cards. This person turns up, whoever this is, we don't know who it is, but this person turns up in 1446 in Mainz as well. Okay, frontier town, remember, like a town of frontier things, of breaking the mold. And the master of the playing cards, this is what we're talking about. So this person is printing as well, but it's etch printing. This is the 3 of birds. So not the 3 of hearts, the 3 of diamonds, this is the 3 of birds. But, so that's a playing card. That's only this big. But that's 3 plates to print that. So each of those is its own plate. And this person worked out, the master of the playing cards worked out, this is the 9 of beasts, Okay, okay, you can see that. Right? There's 9 beasts there, but there's 9 plates to print the 9 of beasts. And so you can actually make the 5 of beasts. And you can, do you see what's happening? And so you can custom make playing cards for a wealthy family. Entrepreneurial as well. And what do entrepreneurs generally do? They hang out with each other. Right? They actually communicate with each other because they're like-minded, they're ADHD and everything else. So here's more of the Master of the Playing Cards etches. So you can see bottom left corner, 9 of the beasts. 2 over on the bottom right is the 5 of beasts. And can you see that there is the same lions are in both cards? Can we see that? Okay, so the Master of the Playing Cards, he's in action, or she. They're in action, 1446, 1448, etc., in Mainz as well. In 1450, the printing press goes operational. Okay, the printing press goes operational. What do you think is Gutenberg's first thing that he prints? A set of playing cards? No. A newspaper? No. Indulgences. He's printing indulgences for the bishops. Of course he is, because what is the currency of the day almost, right? Is indulgences. So if you're going to print something, that's the stuff you're going to be printing. Now, sorry? Like printing money, okay? Now you think about this, what does this do for the bishops and for the local priests and those who are in the indulgence industry? Prior to this, every indulgence had to be handwritten. Now, Gutenberg's press can churn out 3,600 pages a day. Oh, you are printing money now, okay? Everything is going to escalate really fast because of this. No different to today, how fast is things on the internet now or with computers compared to, there may still be people who still white out their screen, but there are kids who don't know what whiteout is anymore, right? Anyway, okay. And then 1452 rolls around, and I've called it the year of the Bibles. It's not called that officially, but I've called it the year of the Bibles so that you would remember it. 1452. Because this year is a phenomenal year. Okay, lots of stuff happens in the year of the Bibles. So, 1452. On the 4th of April, 1452, work commences on the giant Bible of Mainz. And it is a giant Bible. Okay, it is a big thing. Now, you guys, we know a Bible to be this big. Yeah? And then one's this big and we go, oh, that's a big Bible, right? And then there's like a commentary Bible, a study Bible, and it's a little bit bigger, and you're like, my goodness, this is really big. How about a giant Bible? That is literally the Holy Bible. Yeah, this is Sarah's mum's. Yeah, okay? And it's like some crazy, 200 years old or something, or older. It's quite crazy. It's in English. Yeah, it's got commentary with it and the whole lot. So it's a massive study Bible. It's really heavy. But I thought I'd bring that in to show you. You're welcome to have a look at it afterwards. We'll open a page or whatever. But this is what they're talking about when they start talking giant Bibles. They're talking this sort of size to sit on a large lectern in the church so that you would read from this big Bible because it has authority. Big things have authority. Yeah, this is getting heavy. Society had gone to smaller stuff, psalters and things this sort of size, so the priest could carry it with him. It would be thicker because you're not printing on such thin paper and all that sort of stuff, but it was smaller. And then there's this fashion to go back to big Bibles in the churches, and so the big lectern with the big Bible open on it. Yeah, and nearly all of us go, oh yeah, I've seen in a church a big lectern and there's a big Bible on it. Well, this is what's going on, okay? And it's in Mainz. Sorry, in the Catholic churches. Yeah, right? Okay, so in Mainz, work commences on the giant Bible. Sorry, someone sent something, so I'll just check that it wasn't They're still printing in Latin. Yes, okay, it's still Latin. So this commences. Now, this is not being printed. This is actually being handwritten. Okay, this is still being scribed. And it takes, look at that, takes 15 months to do, and it's completed on the 9th of July, 1453. The Giant Bible of Mainz is completed. This is the last handwritten manuscript Bible ever produced on the European continent, because the printing press has suddenly had the power turned on, so to speak. There's no power to the printing press. Okay, it's all manual, but everything's about to change. One guy. Yep, one guy. Yep. Now, can you imagine how many times you stuff up a page and you got to throw that away? You can't get to blot it out. You have to start again. Yeah. And how are they writing? They're writing in Carolingian minuscule in Latin. Okay, so big capital and then small capitals for the lowercase, but not quite lowercase. Yeah. So it's the last handwritten manuscript Bible produced. Here is a page from it. Okay, this is like from the actual Giant Bible of Mainz. Sorry? Well, just steal my thunder. Okay, so now we'll get to that in a second. So it ends up in the Mainz Cathedral. Okay, it ends up in the cathedral in Mainz, which has a name, Dom St. Martin Mainz. Okay, Dom means cathedral. So those coming on the tour, when we go, every single place we go, we'll have a Dom. And a Dom, it'll be on Google Maps. Every time you boot up to look at where you are, there'll be a Dom whatever, okay? And the Dom means the cathedral, okay? And remember, the cathedral was basically centre of the town of everywhere that you went, or pretty close to it. So Dom, cathedral, St. Martin of Mainz. 1452, same time, year of the Bibles. Gutenberg starts work on his printed Bible. Now, what does that mean? He's got to make the plates, like the movable type, and then print that page. And it might take 3-4 days to typeset that one plate before you start printing. And then you're going to punch out 200-300 pages of that, and then someone will be starting on the next plate, and then keep it rolling through. So he starts in 1452, and 1454 he has published the Gutenberg Bible. It is now done. It is the Latin Vulgate still, okay? Because we've had this little hiccup with Wycliffe and English. We've had this little hiccup with Jan Hus and Czech, but the publication is still the Latin Vulgate. What is Gutenberg? He's not a reformer. He's a Catholic. Oh, he's a churchman, but he's purely selling to those with the money. That's all he cares about. He's just an entrepreneur. And what is everybody? Well, we've got to have a Latin Bible. That's what we have. There's no other choice, and that's what the Pope has ordained, and blah, 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 blah. So that's what he prints, the Latin Vulgate. It's 2 columns, and it's 42 lines per page. And it becomes the standard model for the publication of a Bible for hundreds of years, is these 2 columns with 42 lines on each column. You going to say something, Bron? There you go. Okay, cool, good. Now, this becomes the world's first best-selling book. It's the first, because it's the first one you can actually make en masse. You can't mass make. Remember, let's go back 1,100 years, and Constantine orders 50 Bibles to be made, and that has to be at the direction of the emperor of the world, and it's going to take like 10 years or whatever for these to arrive, and that's going to 50 churches, right? Here, Gutenberg is going to punch out 200 of these in a very short period of time. These are not for churches. These are for individuals, okay? So Don has placed an order for a family Bible, and what he'll actually do is it'll be custom printed for him. So the printing will be normal, the 42 lines, 2 columns, but then all the stuff around it'll go back through the printer a second time to have pretty margins put all around it, okay? And they will be individual, custom for the family. So it'll have the family crest in it, it'll have the family colours, which will be hand painted inside the lines, like painting between the lines. But it'll be custom done. Very expensive. Very, very, very expensive. So here's the first page out of the Gutenberg press that's in Mainz today, the replica. They're still printing pages of the Bible today out of that press. This is Genesis chapter 1. Okay, 42 lines, 2 columns, and all the lovely swirls and everything else. Okay, so this hangs on my wall at home. Sarah's on my wall. We bought this in 2017, and so that you can see the reflection because it's framed. But yeah, it's a cool little reminder. In Latin, so you can only guess what it says if you didn't have a Bible in English to work it out. Okay. Now remember the master of the playing cards. Okay. Can you see the flower up the top? Okay, they're reusing the print. Uh-oh, it's not working. Here we go. Well, so there we go. So this is where the master of the playing cards comes in, okay? So his etchers, he's in Mainz, Gutenberg's in Mainz, they're having coffee on a Tuesday, and then Gutenberg is using his plates to start to print into. And as Jody saw, and we'll come back to it in a minute, the beasts, the lions are actually inside, are being used also in the handwritten printing of the giant Bible of Mainz as well. It's fascinating to see how this is all happening in this one place. So with Gutenberg doing what he does, and now the printing press can go forward, so books can now be published and put into the hands of anybody. This was an art exhibition in Berlin in the early 2000s. There is 17 books here, I think it's 17, which is Johannes Gutenberg. That's one for each letter of his name. And these are massive German, what would you call them, writers, as a memorial to Gutenberg. It's no longer up. You can't go and see it today, but you can see. Look who's fourth from the top. All right, Luther. And so you could say, without Gutenberg doing what he did, if the printing press didn't arrive when it arrived, the Reformation has to wait. Okay, it's looking back, it's not possible without the press, because how do you get the information into the hands of people? Does that make sense? Yeah. Online sales, having an online business, can't happen without the internet. Same. Okay, so 1454, the Gutenberg Bible is published, and here we are. Here we have our timeline starting to fill in. Now, as Jody said, here's the giant Bible of Mainz, and here's Master of the Playing Cards, and here we have, look, the same plates being used. Okay, it's pretty cool. Okay, and remember that this giant Bible, it ended up in the Dom St. Martin in Mainz. When I saw, looking at this, and when I saw that it ends up at the Dom St. Martin, I was just like, the connection can't be this good. And then I got very excited and I yelled out to Sarah, oh, it's so exciting. There's this connection. So here's your connection for you. I think you'll like this. St. Martin. Who is St. Martin? That a cathedral is named after him in Mainz on the Limes, the frontier town in Gaul. So, St. Martin of Tours, he is 316 to 397. Who is the emperor at this time? Or for a bulk of his time? Constantine, well done. Okay, Constantine, remember he becomes a Christian in 322. Okay, so he is right at the time that Constantine's influence on Europe is really taking shape. In other words, the Christianization of Europe, because it's no longer illegal to be a Christian, it's now perfectly okay to do so. St. Martin, is the father of monasticism in Gaul. He is the guy who brings the first monastery to what we know as Northern Europe, or not, like outside of Italy. Okay, he's the first guy to go into Gaul and bring the monastic life, the monk life, the monastery life. And so he forms an abbey called St. Martin's Abbey in the town of Tours, which is in southern France, southwestern France today. Does that make sense to everybody where we are? All right. That abbey is filthy rich by the time of 752. And it is that very abbey that Karl the Hammer, Karl Martrell, that's the very abbey that he rallies the troops for to defend. And in defending the abbey, he defends the Merovingian kings and then becomes the king, who then does the donation with Pepin, and then Pepin's son, Karl the Great, Charlemagne, comes from. The reason why Karl gets the honours is because he defends St. Martin's Abbey, and he keeps it from it being looted by the Islamic Caliphate coming up out of Africa. The abbey gets renamed the Marmotio Abbey, and it's the Marmotio Abbey that Alcuin, and Alcuin is the right-hand man of Charlemagne. He's now in charge of this. He becomes the abbot of the abbey, and it's in that abbey that the Carolingian minuscule is perfected for Charlemagne. So how to write it that we could then get to a typesetting 600 years later is reliant on St. Martin bringing monasticism into Gaul. And so this can be published. And so this can be published. I was so excited when I saw this connection. I was like, wow. And it was a guy called St. Martin. Now, Alcuin, before we go any further, Alcuin, who we'd never touched when we looked at Charlemagne, we're going to quickly look at him because he sets something up for us as well. So, he's the guy in charge of the Palatine school of Charlemagne in Aachen. Remember, Charlemagne was educating people, and that was all done near to the palace, and it was in Latin, and right? He's the guy in charge of this. He's the guy doing the education. So he is changing the way people learn in the time of Charlemagne. He is protected by Charlemagne to do that. So no one can argue with him to do it because Charlemagne has said, you go for it. He perfects the Carolingian minuscule, and he invents the question mark. The question mark didn't exist until Alcuin. And he also loves mathematics. He's the guy who made the word problems. A train was leaving the station, and then the duck fell off, and how many ducks have you got left? Whatever. That's Alcuin. Mathematical problems. He also made an equation. This is his equation, stuffed if I know what that means. Hannah, you can have fun with that later. And he was keen on theology. He wrote 9 commentaries on the Bible, on different books of the Bible. He was very critical of the Vulgate, and he didn't think the Vulgate that was around in the time of Charlemagne was accurate enough. He thought it was rusty, and he wanted to get back to what St. Jerome had done in his first translation into Latin, like 500 years earlier. He wanted to get back to that, so he was always trying to refine the Bible against Rome, because Rome didn't want to do that. So he actually published 4 Bibles in Latin, where how he saw corrections being done. But to publish a Bible, it's a year and a half of someone writing that out. You don't get to do it very often. You don't get to do it very, frequently. So they don't have any impact on anything. And they're still in Latin, so for the normal person, they can't tell the difference. It's a little bit like someone saying today, oh, you've got an NIV, and then it's like, is it an 84, is it a 2011? And by and large, for most verses, you won't notice any difference. He writes 3 expositions on biblical things, or treatises as they are called. And he's the guy who puts sketches next to Bible stories in order for the kids in the Palatine school to understand them. This is where your pictures in the Good News Bible, this is where it starts. your pictures, your little kids' Bibles with pictures more than words, this is where it starts. He also is a liturgist, and so he does liturgical reform under Charlemagne on how the church will operate. And he publishes sermons in Latin for the priests to read. In case a priest doesn't know something about, the Psalms, he can just pull out these three and he can read these sermons in them. So not lay preaching, but someone who doesn't know, a priest who's not specialised in the book of Revelation has got something he can go to and read as a sermon. He also puts together collections of readings for the church to read each week in going through the year. Very much a shadow of what the prayer book will be after Henry VIII in England, 600 years after Alcuin. And so it's referred to as a missal, an M-I-S-S-A-L. That one might be lost, Warwick, on the screen, so we might just drop that. So he publishes this missal, and the missal becomes the European standard in every church in the empire of Charlemagne. They have basically a prayer book, like what the Anglican prayer book is, or the Church of England prayer book. You're basically doing the same structure in that it's got a thing for each week. It's different because it's all in Latin, and it's very much influenced by the Pope, and it's very much influenced by what was going on in 800, which has already got, you've got to go and lick the toenail of St. Thomas and everything else. So we could call him a proto-reformer. He is reforming the church in 800 under Charlemagne. But I thought it was fascinating that he is protected by a very powerful lord, Charlemagne. He's got freedom to go and do things in regards to not just theology, but mathematics and liturgy and language even, with question marks and all those sorts of stuff. So this guy is like a foreshadow of what will happen in the Reformation, because the Reformation just wasn't theology, it was everything as well. Yo.
Are any of his writings like anti-Roman, anti-Catholic? Or does he toe the line together?
No, he's very toe the line, yes. But it's just like, I just don't agree with, verse 12. I think it should have said, you need the apostrophe in a different position, or what, yeah. So he's like just wrestling with, he's not saying it's all wrong. No. So he certainly doesn't have the issues that Wycliffe has or Jan Hus has. No, he doesn't have those. He's just trying to, we've made a little mistake here. Yeah. Now, what has happened because of Alcuin, as we go forward from here, Bibles now have commentary in them. Right, like written in the margins, written at the bottom. We call those a study Bible today, right? But if you think about it, how often do we, as we're reading the text, do we then go, what does someone had to say for me to help understand it? And this becomes actually a problem, because what starts to happen is that people are just, like priests are just paying attention to what's been written about the passage and not what the passage actually says in and of itself. The Bible is now being broken up into pieces, smaller pieces, and then lots of input as to what that says, instead of the purity of the word of itself. And this is going to be a problem with Luther. Okay, so back to our timeline. We have these things going on, and 1453, we also have another thing happen, the fall of Constantinople to the Ottomans. So remember, we had Rome in the west, the Byzantine Empire in the east, so the Holy Roman Empire in the west, and the Byzantine Empire in the east. Constantinople, where Constantine had his capital, was like the eastern bastion of Christianity. It falls in 1453 to the Ottoman Empire. What this means, this is massive for Europe. This is a huge event. So while 1452, year of the Bible, this is really cool, 1453 is a really, really bad year. So if we go to a map, this is a very, very busy map. And this is in the time, this is 1453, okay, or 1452. So all I need you to look at is to the half to the left of the center of the screen, you've got, I think it's in pink, is an area, and it says Holy Roman Empire in red. Okay, and you can see around it is a red line going down to Italy and then coming back up, and it goes right around, and it's basically, that's the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, to the right of that, you can see you've got like Hungary in the, is that brown? Brown, okay, Hungary in the middle is brown, and then you've got all this other stuff going down into green to the bottom right, and the Ottoman Empire. Is that still without me? Sorry? It's on me. We'll just drop me out for 2 seconds so those online can see that the complete map as well. So if you look right over on the right-hand side, you can see the Caspian Sea, and then you've got the Black Sea from the right coming to the left. You've got the Black Sea, and where the Black Sea drains out into the Mediterranean, that's where Constantinople is. That falls to the Ottomans. And to remember, when Constantine built Constantinople, it held the waterway, Black Sea to the Mediterranean, and also held the land from Asia, or Turkey today, but from Asia through to Europe. All of that is now held by the Ottomans, which means if I put it onto a simplified map for you, here we go. This is a map that you guys are we've used more often. So this is the Holy Roman Empire. Constantinople is down on the right-hand side in pink, the city. It's suddenly gone Islamic. And when it goes Islamic, all of this goes Islamic as well. And when that happens, you now have Islam knocking on the door of the Holy Roman Empire. This is huge. Because remember, there's been this massive power struggle inside the Holy Roman Empire. Who's in charge, who's not. Suddenly, we actually, and we sent people to war against Islam over the sea and far away in the 1000s, 1100s, 1200s on the Crusades. Now it's at our door. Now it's at our doorstep. So, back to our timeline, 1453, fall of Constantinople. So what I want you to remind you of, 1379, 70 years before this, 1379 was when Wycliffe was censored. Remember, he was told to shut up, you're not allowed to do what you've been saying. The Pope has got all cranky at Wycliffe over in England. The same time that he is being censored by Rome, in the middle of the Holy Roman Empire, right in the middle of it, is a city called Erfurt. And Erfurt, a university is formed in Erfurt in 1379. The oldest university in Europe is the University of Erfurt. Oxford is 300 years earlier, but the University of Erfurt, 1379. And there'll be a guy at this university. So here, red dot is Erfurt. All right, now have a look at it. It is almost dead center of Europe. And my head goes, if I were God and I was wanting to change things, if I hit the middle of it, the ripples will run in every direction and I'll have the greatest impact on things. Well, Erfurt's going to play big time in what's going on. So there is a professor, it's not 1379 that he's professor there, it's after this, just shortly after, but there will be, at the university, there'll be a professor of theology called Johannes Zachariah. Now this guy, if you Google him, there's not a lot. You have to actually dig to find him. The Wikipedia page has nothing written in it. Like, it's his name and there's just nothing there. It's like, ooh, okay. But this guy is going to be professor of theology at the University of Erfurt. But for him to get to the University of Erfurt, he will first of all go to Oxford. Okay, 1384 to 1391, he's at Oxford as a lecturer at Oxford in theology. What has just finished happening in England near Oxford? Who was at Oxford? Wycliffe was at Oxford. What happened in 1382 for Wycliffe? He publishes his translation. 1384 he dies. Who comes straight after him? Who's he been training in the dark, in the quiet? The Lollards. They're in action in Oxford. Okay, in and around Oxford. And this guy is a lecturer in Oxford at the same time that the Lollards are moving around. And this guy loves not reforming, to start with. So, he's there for a period of time. We then see him show up in a record in 1410 at Erfurt University as the professor of theology. The records for Erfurt University are still there, and so he's there. He's written down, like we know he's there type thing. So he's there in 1410. What was happening in 1410 to the east of Erfurt? Jan Hus is preaching in Czech, and he's calling on a change and calling on the get rid of the corruption and let's get back to the original and all those sorts of things. This is Erfurt. Here's pretty Erfurt. Beautiful Erfurt. And this is a photo from 1410. They had Ferris wheels in 1410 and power lights. It was an amazing place. And Christmas markets with electricity. It was all happening in 1410. Please, no one send me a message saying, how is that possible? That's done in sarcasm. Okay. And in 1419 to 1427, so after his, like, you can see he's like 9 years as the professor of theology or something like that, but he becomes the abbot of the Augustinian monastery in Erfurt. He actually has 2 stints in those 19 to 27, so he's a monk probably well earlier than that, and then he becomes abbot, then he's not abbot, then he has another go, like president of the club, not president of the club, president of the club type thing, okay? But he's in charge of the Augustinian monastery in Erfurt. This is the chapel or the church inside the monastery. Those of us going, you get to go into this building. We're going to this place. Yep, this is the monastery in Erfurt. Now, this guy, Johann Zechariah, he was at the Council of Constance. When Jan Hus was burnt at the stake, this guy was at the council. He was there. Not only was he there, he was the prosecutor. This is the guy who said Jan Hus cannot speak. This is the guy that brought all the accusations against him. This is what you've been doing. This is where you're wrong. This is the guy who called for the death penalty. And he is known as the Hussamastics, the master of Huss, the one who ruled over Huss and killed him. He's the prosecutor of Jan Hus. So he's actually the bastion of the purity of the church, so to speak. So much so that at the Augustinian church, Kirch is church, at the Augustinian church in Erfurt, he is buried in front of the altar in the church. So if we go to the church, we go inside the church, here it is here, this is inside, and he is literally buried here in the floor. If you look really closely, there's a step, and then there's like lighter colour of tiles coming from the left and the right, and there's a break in between. Big slab of stone, and that's his cover of his, where he's buried, and his name is all written on it, and blah, 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 blah. He was celebrated by the Augustinians for holding out against this terrible thing in Czech, this preaching in another language other than Latin, in singing, and in calling against the corruption of the church. This guy is heralded as like the amazing man for this. If this had happened today or 100 years ago in another town somewhere, it's likely that you'd probably dig him up and throw him away like they did with Wycliffe, because the attitude changed in the Augustinians later. Okay, so he's buried in front of the altar in the Augustinian church. But his time as the abbot and his time as professor, he actually saw a need to reform the Augustinian order. He saw that it had moved away from St. Augustine's monastic rules of piety and poverty and looking after the poor and reading a Bible and prayer and all those sorts of things. and confession, and it had become too liberal, too soft. And so he's calling for a reformation of the Augustinians, which he succeeds in doing, and it becomes known, the Augustinians in Germany, in Saxony, become known as the Saxon Reformed Congregation of Augustinians, or Augustinian monks. And he's the guy who does this. Now, why is this important? Because when we get to Luther, Luther is looking for, piety, poverty. I've got to confess. I've got to. That's exactly the mindset of Luther when we get to him. Okay. And it's in Erfurt, is where he's done it. In Erfurt, centre of Germany. Okay. I don't know why I've got the year of the Bibles. 1459. 1459. We have the birth of a guy called Hans Luther and Marguerite Lindemann. They're both born in the same year. The Lindemann family is upper middle class, very social and lots of connections. Hans Luther is mining, and these guys will get married, and Hans will be a miner, and Marguerite will be a mother type thing. Here they are, here. A painting of them, an original painting. Now, there are some who say that Hans Luther is the foreshadow of Barry Humphries' Sir Les Patterson. And I can see it, yeah. He doesn't look very happy, that's for sure. And I must say, Marguerite looks like she's gone through a fair few hard times. What was that? She's got no teeth? Yeah. She looks cranky. She's got a big jaw too. Okay, so remember, 1459, Hans Luther is born, Marguerite is born, and we are looking at the centre of the Holy Roman Empire is where we're focusing, because Erfurt, ground central, reforming of the Augustinian monks. We've got, whispers to the right and whispers to the left have occurred. And so Erfurt is becoming critically important. This is a picture of Erfurt, and so there is the cathedral on the left, and just for good luck, another church like literally 20 metres away on the right. They're both Catholic churches. I don't know what they're doing, but they built another one. So we just like churches in Erfurt, but they're both Catholic churches, and these are Christmas markets. Again, this is from 1459 photo. This was taken in 1459 in colour. They found this in the house of Hans Luther. Yeah, just last year. Yep. Now, I must say, if you look at the sign right in the middle here, it says Nürnberger Lebkuchen. Oh, yummy, yummy, yummy. Okay. So 1460, the birth of another person of importance. So 1459, Hans Luther. 1460, the birth of a guy called Johann von Staupitz. Here we have von come back in. Remember the knights and the Ostelbian moving people got this name, the Vons, the Junkers. He is from that stock somewhere in the past, but we have the birth of this guy Staupitz is born as well. Now, it's quite amazing that these two guys, Hans Luther, 1460, Staupitz, 1459, 1460, Staupitz, this is what, but he could have been 1469 because there's two records, and is it a 9, is it a 0? There's a question mark. Now remember, the Saxon Reformed Congregation of Augustinians that Johann Zachariah has put together as Reformed. Well, Staupitz, this is Johann von Staupitz, and yeah, I love his little tuft here. It's very good. Sorry? What was that? Oh, it's like a mate. Okay, yeah. Okay, this is Staupitz, and this is Staupitz. Look, he's still got his tuft of hair. And this is Staupitz, he's still got his hair. What is in the background of that third picture? Can anyone read that? Yes, it says bulla indulgence. Okay, so the papal bulls and the indulgences. Okay, these two things. So he is a conduit for this stuff coming out of Rome, right? Because the Augustinians are part of that as well. Now, but he will be the abbot, not just of Erfurt Augustinians, but of all of Germany. He'll be like the head guy for the Augustinian monks in Germany, the Reformed Augustinian monks. And their big thing, if you can see in the first picture of him, what has he got in his hands? A Bible. A Bible. Okay. So, now we're going to go backwards for a moment again. 1452, the year of the Bibles. Remember that, wow, look what's going on. The year of the Bible is also the year that Leonardo da Vinci is born. Why is that important? Because he paints, because he's going to be contracted by the Pope in 50 years' time to do some stuff in Rome, which is going to be part of the bankrupting of the papacy. And so they're going to need to sell more indulgences to pay for Leonardo and Michelangelo and Raphael to go and paint lovely scenes. It's also the same year, 1452, is the start of the reign of Frederick III the Peaceful. Frederick the Peaceful. It seems a weird time to call yourself the Peaceful when the very next year Constantinople will fall and the Ottomans are now on your door and you're going to have to army up to make sure you keep it all happening. But he is of the Habsburg dynasty. And remember we had 200 years earlier, we had the prince electors had put in this one Habsburg guy. They thought he was old and they'd be able to control him, and then that didn't really work. And then one-eyed Jan then had an issue with that and all that sort of stuff. Well, this guy is of the Habsburg dynasty, and he's basically the start of the actual dynasty, is Frederick III. The Habsburgs are going to play a pivotal role in Europe all the way through to First World War. All right, they're going to be good, bad, or ugly. You can work it out yourself. But his reign starts. Now, the interesting thing is, he's called the Peaceful because in a way, that's what he is as an emperor. He actually allows much freedom for people to do things. And so going to university becomes a really, really cool thing to do. And, being an entrepreneur and publishing Bibles, that's a really cool thing to do. And, the emperor's okay with it, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, here's what he looks like. There's a painting of him from the day. And do you notice he's now looking sideways again? He's not looking front on. Remember that change in their portraits way back. But he doesn't have the globe. So Hans Luther, we're coming back to him now. We just wanted to put that into perspective. Hans Luther and Johann von Staupitz. These two guys are important because there's a third guy as well. Sorry, not because there's a third guy, but there's a third one as well that we want to keep in our brains, and that is 1463, the birth of Frederick III. Not Frederick III, the Peaceful of the Habsburgs, but Frederick III, also known as Frederick the Wise, and he will be Prince Elector of Saxony. By this point, Saxony has worked something out. The Prince Elector of Saxony, or the area of Saxony, has worked something out. In their ground, they have silver. So the wealthiest elector is the Elector of Saxony. He has got mines. Hans Luther, a miner. He's mining copper, but they've got copper, they've got silver, they've got these precious metals, and they are churning this out of the ground. Hans Luther will go on to actually own or rent or lease or whatever it is, 6 smelting plants. 6 smelting plants, right? He's not a peasant. He's got cash, and he's paying taxes to the Prince Elector of Saxony. He's inside Saxony, and he'll be paying, and the Prince Elector is getting wealthier and wealthier. It's not just, obviously it's not Hans Luther who's making him wealthy, it's the entire region is making him wealthy. Here he is, Frederick the Wise. Ooh, someone wolf whistled. Yeah. It's his eye? Yeah, it's almost like a pirate, isn't he? Now, this is painted... This is a painting by an artist called Albrecht Dürer. And Albrecht Dürer is one of the masters of early Renaissance art, late medieval period. And Albrecht Dürer's house is one of the only structures in Nuremberg that wasn't bombed in the Second World War. It still stands today, and it is still a workshop for artists today. So it's like a 500, 600-year-old house in wood, and we're going there. Those of us going, we're going to Albrecht Dürer's house, to see some of his art. I think he's a phenomenal. His detail is amazing. Anyway, this was painted by Albrecht Dürer for Frederick the Wise. This one is Frederick the Wise as well, a few years later. He's wealthy, so he likes his goose meat and his whatever else. So he's packed on a few kilos. You'll be right, Warwick, I wouldn't worry about it. That'll be fine, I think. He's packed on a few kilos, but this is actually painted by a different painter, and we're going to introduce you to him in 2 seconds. And that is 1472, we have the birth of a guy called Lucas Cranach. We say Cranach, okay? And we'll call him Cranach from here, but Cranach is his name. And Lucas Cranach, this is a Lucas Cranach painting on the right. There is Cranach the Elder, and then his son is born later, and it is Cranach the Younger, and you almost can't pick their style apart. It is the signature, which is how you know that it's a Lucas Cranach the Senior or Lucas Cranach the Younger. But they operate out of the same workshop. Yeah. And Cranach will become the painter for Frederick the Wise. Okay? He is the court painter for Frederick the Wise. So he is under Frederick's employ in the start of the 16th century, the 1500s. That's Lucas Cranach the Elder. So he dies 1550, about 1550. Yeah. Now, he is a massive entrepreneur as well. This guy, he'll do whatever makes him money as well. I'd say so, yes. Well, interestingly, they would actually, a lot of artists would paint themselves, and then that was their sales pitch for people. Like, would you like your portrait done? Look how I painted myself in a mirror. Yeah. Albrecht Dürer's his publication, his painting for then doing like portraits is considered one of the most amazing pictures ever painted. You probably have seen it and you thought it was a picture of Jesus, like face on, curly hair and stuff like that. It's actually Albrecht Dürer's self-portrait. Anyway, he will actually not only be painting, he will own a printing press, a printing workshop. He'll also have a pharmacy. Like, guys, yeah, he owns land, like here, there, everywhere. He's a phenomenal entrepreneur as well. Okay, so by this point, so we're, 1472, Cranach is born, and as we move through this next decade, 1470 to 1480, the Prince Electors have all the power. All right, these guys are phenomenally powerful now, and the Elector of Saxony is filthy rich. The University of Erfurt is ready. It's 100 years old by this point. It's fully functional. It's fully doing its thing. Bible translation has occurred. It's occurred over in England. It has already occurred in bits and bobs in places, and it is shown that there is a desire for it. People want the Bible in their own language. They want it. So there is an economic viability in doing this. The Hussites have a legacy, song in church, the mass in your own language, the service in your own language, sermons in your own language, singing. The Augustinians have reformed, and they are now waiting. The printing press is ready and operational. The church corruption is rampant. Indulgences are being pumped out like crazy. The economy is everywhere. Constantinople has fallen, so there is a great fear of Islam, of impending doom. It's the end of the world. The parents, Hans Luther, and Marguerite Lindman are together. They're married. They're stable. They've got good business thing going on. They've got cash. The protector elector has been born and he's ready. Frederick the Wise. And Cranach is in Frederick's court and he is waiting with a printing press. And they're waiting for the 10th of November, 1483, the birth of one Martin Luther. Of course, you're going, isn't it Luther? No, it's Luther. He's born Martin Luther on the 10th of November, 1483. And he's born in a place called Eisleben, or Eisleben, in Saxony, in Germany. So he is under Frederick the Wise's territory. Here's Eisleben, or Eisleben, in Saxony, and this is the market square. This is the centre of the old town, the Altstadt, which means old Stadt city, the old city. There's not a lot going on in Eisleben. So look who they've got right in the middle of the town square. There's a statue, and guess who the statue is of? Marty boy. Okay. And so he is named after St. Martin of Tours, because St. Martin of Tours is born the very next day. Like his birth celebration is the 11th of November. And so in honour of St. Martin, we'll name our son Martin as well. And just think of the legacy that I showed you comes out of St. Martin of Tours, Charlemagne, the Carolingian minuscule, the education of people, the challenge what is said, is it right, is it correct, what do we need to change, is all built into this name, really, when you think about it. So he will be sent, this child is going to be sent when he's very young to Latin schools in these three places, in Mansfeld for a while, in Magdeburg, and then in Eisenach. So these three locations, here is a map. Remember, Erfurt is in the middle. He's going to be sent to, what was the first place? Mansfeld, to Magdeburg, and to Eisenach. They don't move very far, right? It's like arrows on a target. Dun, 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 dun. It's all really, really close. To give you an idea, to walk from Erfurt to Mansfeld, it's 84 kilometres. It's 18 hours walk. It can be done in 2 days. It can be done in 1 day if you were super keen and fit, but I'd say 2 to 3 days to walk there. But it's very, very close. I actually put all of these sites into Google Maps and did a show me the route type thing, and it's exactly 300 kilometres round trip to go to all 4 places, and return back to Erfurt. Okay, in 1501, so he is 17. He is enrolled in the University of Erfurt. This young, mid-teenager, whatever you want to call him, he is completely fluent in Latin. Inside, outside, back to front, everything. Latin is a second language to him. While at the Latin school, he has also learnt Greek. And he's also learnt Hebrew as well. So he's in Erfurt, dead centre of the Holy Roman Empire, or Germany. 1 year later, he has achieved his Bachelor of Arts in the liberal arts. Now, this is important because anyone who's gone to uni, what are the art students like? Airy-fairy. No. What are they like? They know everything about everything. Oh, sorry, I've just received a message that it was a little while ago. It says, how could that photo of Erfurt be from 1410? And then it said, someone missed the disclaimer. Okay. So he receives his Bachelor of Arts. So it's 2 years, basically, to do his Bachelor. But he is art students, they're the ones who protest. They're the ones who are like, up the establishment. Like they're the ones who are prepared to have a bit of a, wave a flag, right? They got plenty of time to do it. Yeah, between saying, would you like fries with that? An arts graduate will have time to protest, right? So if you think about it, there's like a little fire inside of like, I want to have an argument with somebody, all right? Okay, so he gets his Bachelor of Arts. In 1505, he receives his Magister Artium. What do you think that means? Let's go with it. Sorry? A Master of Arts, that's right. Now just have a look there. Magi or Magister, it's where the word Magi, it's one of the, like Magi is the root word. So magistrate, magister, etc. This is where the wise men, where their name influences this today. So he is a Master of Arts, and it's in philosophy. All right, now I have a philosophy. What do we call him? Graduate in our family. They're painful. They're painful to argue with because they've critically thought about stuff. They've already wrestled with stuff, and you're having an argument, and they already know where you're going to get to, in 20 minutes' time, and they're already arguing against where you're going to get to, and you haven't even said it yet. Yeah, he frustrates me sometimes, right? So you've got someone who wants to have an argument and can see where you're already going with your argument and is already 10 minutes ahead of you. This is what he's got. He's a Master of Arts in philosophy. And so he's going to commence study in law. Okay, so once you got a degree, once you got your master's in the day, you would then go and study one of three things. Okay, law, I can't remember what the middle one was. Theology, was it mathematics? Might have been. There was three. You can go and have a look it up. But there was three things that you would go and study one of the, or become proficient in one of these three. And so he chooses law, and that is thought to be very much because of the influence of his father. Dad's got 6 smelting plants, staff, contracts, etc. He needs a lawyer on deck to make sure everything's working well for the business. So, Dad's no doubt going, if we can get him to be he'll be able to do all the legal stuff for the family business. But he commences studying law. Now he's only just started, and he's headed home to see Mum and Dad there at Mansfield. Erfurt to Mansfield, 84 Ks. So he's gone home to see Mum and Dad. And when he's coming back to Erfurt on foot, he's going to have a problem. He's going to get caught in a storm. The 2nd of July, 1505. It's a summer storm. Remember, summer is opposite to us. It's the middle of summer storm. He's caught in an electrical storm. And there's lightning crashing everywhere, and it's very, very scary. And young Martin, who is, 20 by this point? 22, whatever it is. He freaks out. Now, during his university days, and there's not much detail on it, but he almost died in a pub in Erfurt. Sorry? Yeah. Great, because art students go to the pub. Now, here's how he almost died. He stabbed himself with his sword, short dagger, whatever that you all carried around, right? Because it's the Wild Wild West. He stabbed himself in his leg on that artery. What's the artery called? The femoral artery or something or other. So he's bleeding out real fast. He's holding it, and he prays to St. Mary, the beloved Virgin, that she would rescue him from death. He doesn't die, so he's got this okay, the mandate is when you hurt yourself or when you're going to die, you call out to the saints and they will rescue you. Right? Obviously, that's what's that? That is scholasticism. Remember scholasticism? Scripture and reason. I pray and it happens. So I'll call to the saints and I'll get rescued. He's in the storm and he cries out to, this time, St. Anne, which is Dad's saint, the patron saint of miners. St. Anne is the mother of Mary. So he's gone one step higher, right? I'm going higher than Mary, the Blessed Virgin. I'm going one step higher to Anne. Help St. Anne. I'm going to die. I'm going to get hit by lightning. I'm going to die. I'll become a monk is his trade-off. Okay, his payment. Okay, indulgence payment, right? I'm going to earn this. Well, here's his payment. I'll become a monk if you rescue me from the storm. Well, he doesn't get hit by lightning. So, 2nd of July is when this happened. Now, just think about, this is a 23-year-old. To get someone to go through with their word, it must have been a cracker of a storm. Must have been a real doozy. The 2nd of July, he's in the storm. He goes back to Erfurt and he says, that's it with all this stuff I've studied. And 15 days later, he walks into the Augustinian monastery in Erfurt to become a monk. He gets a haircut, yes. Okay? So 15 days later is all it was. And really, probably by the time he got to Erfurt, it's 14 days. It takes him 2 weeks. He's got to sell some books, get rid of, clear out his locker. Whatever he has to do. This is probably cold now. Very cold. But he enters the Augustinian monastery in Erfurt under this guy, Johann von Staupitz. And not this guy, Hans Luther. Hans wanted a secular life for his son. And this is what Luther has chosen, basically. Dad wants me to do this, and Dad is not happy that Martin has gone into the monastery. Because all of his study is now wasted money. The records at the University of Erfurt have the enrollment of Martin Luther, and he is ineligible for any financial assistance to be there, which indicates Dad has paid everything up front. And it's all been wasted money because he's not going to be able to help now because he's gone and become a flipping monk. Wasted time. Sorry? Yes, he did. He had 8 siblings. Yes, Mum's cranky and tired because he was the first. Yep. Okay, so, and what is Staupitz? Staupitz is ad fontes. What does ad fontes mean? Do you remember? Back to the sources. Humanism. What's he holding in his hands? Go back to the Bible. Not to what the Pope has said about the Bible, not to what someone has written in the margins, but what the Bible says. And this is what he will instruct Luther to do. So Martin is a pain in the backside. He's a complete pain in the neck. I think I've got a picture of him. Here he is, a young man. So this is a painting by Cranach expressing what he might have looked like. Because there's no reason to paint this guy in 1505 because he's a nobody. He's just a monk, becoming a monk. Right, so it's just like we'll try and paint him going backwards. But, what was I saying? He's going to be a pain in the neck. So the following year, 1506, he takes his monastic vows. So it's 6 months is like testing the waters, and he's all good. He's very diligent in it because I've made a deal with St. Anne that I have to do this. So he's really, really diligent. He then takes his monastic vows of the Augustinians, the Saxon Reformed congregation of Augustinians, which means this is a vow of piety, of poverty, of chastity, of confession. He takes these really, really seriously. So there is plenty of references in various spots that says that Staupitz had to deal with Luther confessing for 6 hours at a time. Straight. 6 hours. And then there were other times where 6 to 8 times a day he would be going to confession. And then he'd get back to his room and be really proud that he'd confessed all of his sins to then go, oh, hang on, now I've got pride, that's a sin. Turn around, go back, go back to confession to confess his pride. You can imagine this, right? And around and around and around he's going. With a fire in his belly that says, I want to pick a fight with someone. With a knowledge of philosophy and how the brain is working. He's fluent in Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. And he's got a tutor. He's got the man over him, his pastor, his confessor, whatever you want to call him, who is saying, go read your Bible. Go read your Bible. And go and read your Bible. This guy's huge in this early development of this guy who will become known as Martin Luther. In 1507, he is ordained as a priest. And he has to do his first mass, where he's leading the mass, like hocus pocus. Okay? And Dad comes. Dad comes to watch. And he's so nervous that he drops the plate and he freaks out and he can't go through with it. And here he is as a monk. So much to the disappointment of Dad. And so Dad sort of writes him off from this point. And so Martin won't actually see much of his parents going forward for a long period of time. They do apparently reconcile later, but Dad dies shortly after. And he is being instructed by Staupitz to keep going back to his Bible, And he has to prepare some stuff on Romans during this time. And in doing so, he says, it was like the gates of heaven were opened to me and I suddenly realized that it's by grace that I'm saved. Here's a guy locked into this cycle of what do I do? What is he? He's the rich young ruler. What must I do to enter eternal life? What must I do? What must I do? What must I do? In a culture of you must do and you must do and you must do. Luther will be sent to Rome by Staupitz as part of this delegation to represent some issues to the Pope. And while doing that, that's a pilgrimage to Rome and I'm going to earn points for purgatory. And, when I get there, there's the steps and you have to go the steps and you've got to recite the Lord's Prayer on each step, walking backwards up them or some silly thing. He does all these things and it's but there's nothing here. This is all emptiness. And he's just lost. And then he starts to realize this thing called grace alone. And Staupitz is saying, go back to the Bible. What's Staupitz really saying to him? Scripture alone. Keep going back to the scriptures. Staupitz and Luther will actually fall out because Staupitz doesn't have the courage to go as far as his pupil will go. But he's going to... Martin's piety and confessionlessness and his monkery is so intense that Staupitz actually goes, I can't deal with this guy anymore. He's too crazy. He's too intense for me. And he makes a suggestion. And he says, there's a new university has opened up the road and a bit in a town called Wittenberg. Frederick the Wise has made a new university, 1501 I think it opened. He's got a new university there. And that university is looking for a teacher in theology, a doctor of theology. Would you like to go, Martin? And Martin goes, oh yeah, sounds good. And so he journeys off to this place called Wittenberg, which means the white mountain, Witten, white, Berg, mountain, and it's completely flat. It's like a false statement to, make it seem better. It's a town of 2,000 people. It's the size of Molong. But it's where Frederick the Wise has decided to build his castle. It's going to be his capital. This is where he's going to live. And it is right on the edge of the river Elbe. The second frontier, remember, we came to the Rhine, and then the next frontier, the Elbian, and then east of that, the Ostelbians, is right on the edge of the Elbe. Sorry? Oh, it's bigger. Yeah, it'd be orange. Yeah. But the Altstadt, the old city, is really contained. Yeah. Yeah, some of it is. Some of it is. The university is still there. Yeah. And the church at the castle is still there. Yeah. And so Martin heads off to Wittenberg. And so this is where we finish tonight with our young monk who's wrestling with the human condition and is not satisfied with what is going on, with a fire in his belly to have a fight with someone. He can see where people are thinking. He knows the languages. And he's got a teacher who said, you keep reading that Bible. You keep reading that Bible. Or as Wycliffe had said, search for the ancient paths. That passage in the Bible. Find the ancient paths and walk in those ones. Stand at the crossroads and see. Look for the ancient path. And that's exactly what he's doing. Questions? Comments? No questions or comments. We have questions and comments online. Let's see. Very shortly. Yep. So the question was online, when does he go from Luder to Luther? And what it has to do with is, and we'll deal with it more in a fortnight, but it's basically, there was a humanist thing that you did, and that was that you changed your name. So Luder actually is more like Ludwig. Okay, it's like on that line of language, Ludwig. Whereas there's another word called Eleutherian, and the center of that is Luther, Eleutherian, and Eleutherian means the free man. You can see where he's pulling that from. I'm free. I'm now free. So as he comes to realize that salvation is by grace alone, received in faith alone, in the person of Jesus, I'm free. I'm free from indulgences. I'm free from purgatory. I'm freedom from the captive notion of the church that held people captive for more than 1,000 years of people being held captive. And it made me think about it quite significantly just on the drive in tonight. And it was how it must grieve the Father's heart that his precious ones were held to a prison of you must do, when the very Son said, you don't have to do, I've come to give it to you. And then suddenly this great awakening, which wasn't, and as I think hopefully I've showed you, it's not like Luther just appears on the scene randomly from nowhere and he's like, bing! Look at what it is. It's this big rolling thing has been coming and coming, and then all of a sudden it's like the Spirit has gone, now's the time. Boom, 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 boom. And let's roll. And what do I need to wake people up? Sometimes it is a fear. Fear is required to wake people up. Sometimes it's language is required. All these different facets are all going on at once to do it. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Yo.
This sign, yum. What is that? The one that you said is delicious.
Yeah, Nürnberger Lebkuchen. It's Nuremberg gingerbread coated in chocolate or infused with almonds or lots of different things. And in Nuremberg, they sell them, they're about that big, right? They're like a massive cookie, and there's 5 of them in a pack, and they're just like, oh. They don't quite rate, I would say they don't quite rate the same as Printen, which is in Aachen, but we're not going to Aachen, so they'll be the next best thing. Yeah, but to see them, we bought them in Nuremberg, and I was like, And then I just saw that sign, only when I put that picture in and went, oh, they had them in like Erfurt as well. Fantastic. Leberkuchen. But it's not the chimneys. The chimneys are then the next level. What's wrong, Cooper? Your big smile. Yeah, you just need to have plenty of dosh in your pockets, mate. And as you walk past, you just go, yep, thank you, keep going. And a backpack to store it all in. Yep. Any other questions? No? Oh, well, we might finish up. And if you want to come and have a look at the big Bible, I'll maybe open a page. Probably don't flip it because the spine is like, the cover is broken and all sorts of stuff. So how about I pray for us? Father, we thank you again for our time tonight. And Father, we thank you for how we can see your hand, your fingerprint on history. And we can see how you bring about those things that need to be done, that your plans and purposes might come to fruition. And we thank you for that. Amen.